The air inside the grand mansion was cold and silent, almost too silent. The only sound that broke it was the echo of hesitant footsteps on the glossy marble floor. A young woman, barely 20, dressed in a simple faded gown and worn slippers, stood frozen in front of an enormous painting hanging majestically on the wall. It wasn't just any painting. It was a portrait of her late mother. Her lips trembled as she took a shaky step closer. "No, this can't be," she whispered, her brown eyes wide with disbelief. The woman in the painting wore the same coral beads her mother was buried with, the same soft, dimpled smile, the same scar just above the left brow. Her fingers reached out, trembling, almost touching the frame before a deep, commanding voice echoed behind her. "What are you doing here?" Startled, she turned around to see the billionaire, Chief Desmond Cole, the most powerful man in Lagos, standing by the door, his tall frame casting a shadow that stretched across the polished floor. His expression was one of confusion and shock. He looked from the painting to the trembling girl, then back to the painting again as if his eyes were deceiving him. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice firm but uncertain. I came to deliver the catering orders, sir," she stammered, gripping the edge of her basket. "But, that woman, that's my mother." Chief Desmond's face drained of color. He took a slow step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "What did you say?" The girl swallowed hard. That's my late mother, sir." Her name was Clara. The billionaire blinked rapidly, confusion turning into something darker, panic. He stared at the portrait again, his lips parting slightly. "That's impossible," he muttered, almost to himself. "Clara is dead, she died 20 years ago." The girl nodded slowly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Yes, I buried her myself." For a long, tense moment neither of them spoke. The massive chandelier above them hummed faintly, and the smell of fresh polish filled the air. Then suddenly the billionaire's voice broke the silence. "Get out." The words cut through the room like a blade. The girl froze. "Sir?" "I said get out," he shouted now, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and rage. "Get out of my house." She stumbled backward, frightened, nearly tripping over her own slippers. Her basket fell, spilling pieces of jollof rice and fried plantain across the marble floor. But as she turned to flee, Chief Desmond's voice stopped her again, this time quieter but colder. "Wait." He took slow, deliberate steps toward her. "What's your name?" "Amara," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Desmond's eyes widened. His entire body stiffened. His lips trembled slightly as he whispered, "Amara?" The room felt like it had stopped breathing. The name rolled off his tongue like something sacred, something forbidden. He looked back at the painting, then at her again, his expression shifting from anger to shock, then to something indescribable. The girl took a step back. "Why are you looking at me like that?" The billionaire didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached for the portrait's frame with shaking hands, pressing a hidden button beneath it. The wall behind the painting clicked open slightly, revealing a small compartment. Amara gasped. "What is that?" Desmond didn't answer. He reached inside the compartment and pulled out an old, dust-covered photo album, its leather binding cracked with age. He opened it to the first page. There, tucked neatly behind a transparent cover, was another picture, of her mother, Clara, standing beside a younger Desmond, with a baby in her arms. Amara's breath caught. "That's me," she exclaimed. "That's my baby picture. How did you get this?" The billionaire's hands shook violently. He took a step back, clutching the album to his chest as his face paled even more. This can't be real," he whispered. Your mother, she told me you both died." Amara's voice rose, trembling with emotion. "You knew my mother? Who are you to her?" Chief Desmond couldn't speak. His throat moved as if he was swallowing back years of hidden truth. He turned away, staring blankly at the portrait as tears welled up in his eyes. Finally he spoke in a broken voice. "I need you to leave now, Amara. Please. Before anyone else sees you here." "But sir, I deserve to know what's going on," she pleaded. He turned sharply toward her, his face tight with emotion. "Not now," he barked. "Please, just go." Amara's chest rose and fell rapidly as she clutched the strap of her basket. Her eyes darted between the portrait and the mysterious man before her. Something deep inside told her this was more than coincidence, more than just a shared memory. With trembling hands, she reached into her pocket and pulled out the small locket her mother had left her before she died. Inside was the same photo, her mother holding her as a baby. She held it up for Desmond to see. "You need to explain why my mother's picture, our picture, is here," she said quietly. "Because something tells me, this house has secrets my mother never told me." Desmond's face turned pale as chalk. He took one look at the locket, staggered backward and whispered, "No, it can't be, it can't be." His voice broke. Then, before Amara could ask again, he collapsed to the floor. "Sir!" she screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. The mansion's guards rushed in, shouting orders, while Amara trembled in confusion and fear. One of the guards grabbed her by the arm. "Who are you and what did you do to Chief Desmond?" She tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come out. She could only stare at the fallen billionaire, his trembling hand still clutching the locket chain. And then, as the guards dragged her out, his faint whisper echoed through the hall, barely audible but chilling. "Tell her. I'm her father." The guards froze. Amara's heart stopped. The world around her spun into chaos as her mind struggled to grasp what she had just heard. Was it possible that the billionaire who owned half of Lagos was her father? As she was pushed out of the mansion, rain began to pour outside, cold, heavy, and unrelenting, washing over her face as if the heavens themselves were weeping. But deep inside, she knew one thing for certain. She was going to uncover the truth, no matter what it cost her. And what she didn't know was that the truth was far darker than she could ever imagine. The rain didn't stop for hours. Amara walked barefoot through the muddy streets of Lekki, her catering basket hanging limply from her arm, soaked to the bone. Her heart pounded against her chest as she replayed the billionaire's words over and over in her head. Tell her? I'm her father. It didn't make sense. Her mother had told her countless stories of struggle, of being abandoned, of raising her alone. Not once did she mention a man named Desmond Cole. By the time she reached the one-room apartment she shared with her best friend, Kemi, her clothes clung tightly to her shivering frame. Kemi, a tall, dark-skinned woman in her early 20s with braids wrapped in a headscarf, gasped when she saw her. Amara, what happened to you? You look like you've seen a ghost. Amara didn't answer immediately. She just dropped to the wooden floor, hugging herself. Maybe I did, Kemi. Maybe I saw a ghost today. Kemi frowned, kneeling beside her. Talk to me. What's going on? Amara looked up, her voice trembling. Do you remember the billionaire everyone in Lagos talks about, Chief Desmond Cole? Kemi nodded slowly. The one that owns Cole Holdings? The man people say is richer than some countries. Yes, Amara whispered. I delivered food to his mansion today, and when I got inside, I saw my mother's portrait hanging on his wall. Kemi blinked. Wait, your mother's portrait? Are you sure? I'm certain, Amara said, her voice breaking. It was her. Same face, same necklace, even the same scar on her forehead. Kemi's mouth fell open. That's impossible. Why would a man like that have your mother's portrait? Amara's eyes welled up with tears. I don't know. But that's not even the shocking part. He fainted when he saw me. And before he passed out, he said something I can't forget. What did he say? Amara hesitated, her lips trembling. He said, he's my father. The silence that followed was heavy and long. Kemi stared at her like she was speaking another language. Then she finally found her voice. Wait, what? He said he's your father? As in your real father? Amara nodded slowly. Yes. I didn't even know what to say. I was dragged out by his guards before I could ask more questions. Kemi stood up, pacing the room. This is unbelievable. You mean to tell me that after all these years of struggling, washing clothes, serving people's leftovers, you might actually be the daughter of a billionaire? Amara lowered her head. That's what scares me. What if he's lying? What if this is just some cruel coincidence? Kemi shook her head. Coincidence doesn't hang your mother's portrait in a private mansion. Something's not right here, Amara. That man knows more than he's telling you. Amara sighed deeply, rubbing her arms to keep warm. Mama never told me who my father was. Every time I asked, she said it didn't matter, that he was gone, and that we didn't need him. Kemi sat beside her again. Maybe she was protecting you from something. Amara looked up, confused. Protecting me from what? Kemi's voice dropped to a whisper. From him. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The wind howled outside and the sound of thunder rattled the windows. She clutched her mother's old locket tightly against her chest, staring at the ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the billionaire's pale face, the look of horror in his eyes when he saw her. By morning, she had made up her mind. She needed answers. The next day, Amara returned to the mansion gates, determined. The guards recognized her immediately and moved to block her path. Hey, you again? One barked. Chief said no visitors. Especially you. I just need to know how he's doing, Amara pleaded. Please. I didn't mean any harm yesterday. The guard sighed. Chief is at the hospital. He collapsed yesterday and hasn't been discharged. Amara's eyes widened. The hospital? Which one? The guard hesitated, then muttered, Lagos General. She didn't wait another second. Lagos General Hospital buzzed with the sound of footsteps, ringing phones and nurses calling names. Amara rushed through the hallway, her heart pounding as she searched for Desmond Cole's room. When she finally found it, she froze at the doorway. The billionaire lay on the bed looking frail and pale. But he wasn't alone. A woman, tall, elegant, and richly dressed in an emerald green lace gown, sat beside him, her manicured fingers clutching his hand. Amara instantly recognized her. She was Evelyn Cole, the billionaire's wife. The woman's sharp eyes darted toward the door, catching Amara peeking. Who are you? She demanded. I'm Amara, she stammered. I came to see Chief Desmond. What? Who sent you? Desmond stirred weakly on the bed, his eyes fluttering open. Evelyn, let her in, he murmured hoarsely. Evelyn frowned but obeyed. Amara stepped in slowly, her fingers trembling as she approached. Desmond struggled to sit up, his breathing shallow. You came? I had to, she whispered. I need to know the truth. Evelyn's sharp voice cut through the room. Desmond, who is this girl? And why does she keep showing up? Desmond turned his face toward his wife, his eyes heavy with regret. Evelyn, this is Clara's daughter. The name Clara made Evelyn flinch as if she'd been slapped. Her face twisted with shock. Clara? You mean that woman from the past? Desmond nodded weakly. Evelyn rose from her chair, her voice filled with fury. You told me she was dead. You told me that chapter of your life was closed. I thought she was, Desmond rasped. She disappeared before you and I married. I searched for her, for years. Amara's voice shook. You knew my mother? Desmond's eyes filled with tears. She was more than someone I knew, Amara. She was my first love. The woman I wanted to marry before everything fell apart. Evelyn clenched her jaw, glaring. And now her daughter comes here to destroy everything we've built? Desmond shook his head weakly. No. It's not her fault. But Amara wasn't listening anymore. Her mind was spinning, her pulse racing. If you truly loved my mother, why did she raise me alone? Why did we suffer while you lived like a king? Desmond tried to speak, but his voice broke. Because she was forced to leave. By who? Amara demanded. The room fell silent. Evelyn's face stiffened, and Desmond's trembling hand reached for Amara's. Your mother never betrayed me, he whispered. She left because someone made her believe I wanted her gone. Someone close to me. Evelyn took a step back, her eyes darting nervously. Amara's gaze shifted between them, realization dawning slowly. You mean, someone in this house? Desmond nodded faintly, his voice barely a whisper. Someone who didn't want you to be born. Evelyn's lips parted, but no words came. She turned abruptly and stormed out of the room, her heels clicking sharply on the tiles. Amara stood frozen, her mind swirling with questions. What do you mean, sir? Who did this? Desmond's eyelids fluttered. The truth is hidden inside that portrait, he whispered weakly. Find the key, behind it. And then, before she could ask another question, the heart monitor beside him began to beep rapidly. Nurses rushed in, shouting orders as Amara was pulled away from the bed. She could only watch in horror as the doctors fought to save the man who might be her father. Outside the room, she pressed her hand against her chest, trembling, whispering to herself, what key? What secret is behind that portrait? She didn't know it yet, but finding that key would uncover not just the truth about her mother's disappearance, but a dark secret that could destroy the entire Cole family. The night wind brushed against Amara's face as she stood in front of the mansion gates again. This time, not as a caterer, but as a daughter on a mission. The towering walls of Cole Manor loomed above her like a fortress guarding dangerous secrets. She had waited until midnight, watching the security lights flicker one after another, counting the guards' patrol patterns the way her late mother had once taught her to memorize things carefully. Her heart pounded. Inside that mansion was the portrait that started it all. And behind it, according to Desmond's final words before the doctors took him away, was a key. A key to what, she didn't know, but she was going to find out. Amara slipped through the back gate, her breath shallow, her old slippers muffling her steps on the stone path. She had borrowed Kemi's small torchlight and carried her mother's locket tightly in her palm like it was a charm against evil. When she reached the main hall, her body tensed. Everything was just as she remembered. The marble floor, the shimmering chandelier, and the portrait of her mother staring down from the wall, beautiful and haunting under the dim golden lights. She took a deep breath and climbed onto a small stool to reach the frame. Her hands shook as she pressed the same button Chief Desmond had touched before, the one hidden beneath the golden edge. Click. The wall creaked slightly, opening once again. This time, instead of a photo album, she found a tiny golden key sealed in a glass case. She lifted it carefully, her pulse quickening. Attached to it was a note, written in delicate handwriting. Her mother's handwriting. For the day truth must rise, let this key find the lock behind what was taken. Amara's knees went weak. "Mama, what does this mean?" she whispered. But before she could think further, the sound of slow footsteps echoed behind her. She froze. "Looking for something, Amara?" She turned sharply. Evelyn Cole stood at the bottom of the staircase, her emerald robe glistening faintly in the dim light. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold and sharp as glass. "Mrs. Cole," Amara stammered, hiding the key behind her back. Evelyn's lips curved into a chilling smile. "I should have known you'd come back. You just couldn't stay away, could you?" Amara's heart pounded. "I needed to know the truth. Chief Desmond said my mother, Clara, was forced to leave because of someone in this house." Evelyn slowly descended the stairs, her eyes locked on Amara's trembling figure. "And you think that someone was me?" she said with a mocking laugh. "Was it?" Amara demanded. "Did you make her leave him?" Evelyn stopped at the last step, her voice low and venomous. "Your mother didn't belong in our world, Amara. She was a maid. A pretty little distraction who didn't know her place. I was Desmond's fiancée back then, and I did what any woman in my position would do." Amara's voice broke. "You destroyed her life. You made her raise me in the streets while you lived off the wealth that should have been shared with her." Evelyn's smile faded. "Your mother made her choice. She could have fought, but she ran. And now you're here, thinking you'll take everything back? Not while I'm alive." Amara took a step back, gripping the key tightly. "You can't hide the truth forever." Evelyn's expression hardened. "I already did for 20 years. At that moment, a guard entered the hall, startled by the sight of them. "Madam Evelyn, is everything all right?" Evelyn straightened her robe and turned to the guard. "Everything's fine. This girl was just leaving." The guard's hand moved to his walkie-talkie. "Do you want me to escort her out, ma'am?" Amara's pulse quickened. She couldn't let Evelyn take the key. "No need," she said quickly. "I can find my way." But as she tried to slip past, Evelyn's sharp eyes caught the glint of the golden key in her hand. "What's that?" Evelyn barked. Amara froze. "It's nothing." Evelyn lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "Give me that." The key slipped from Amara's grasp and clattered onto the marble floor. Both women dove for it at the same time, but Amara was faster. She snatched it and ran toward the back corridor as the guard shouted, "Stop her!" Her slippers slapped against the floor as she dashed through the dim hallways, her heart thundering. The guard chased behind her while Evelyn screamed, "Don't let her leave with that key." Amara turned sharply, nearly colliding with a large sculpture, then slipped through a small door that led into the mansion's old library. She hid behind a tall bookshelf, clutching the key against her chest. She could hear Evelyn's voice echoing from the hall. "Search every corner. She's still inside." Amara's breath came in ragged gasps. She looked around the library, desperate for an escape route. Her eyes landed on a rusted safe embedded in the wall, its lock old and worn. A thought struck her. Could this be the lock her mother mentioned in the note? She hurried to it and inserted the key. It fit perfectly. Her hands trembled as she turned it. Click. The door swung open, revealing a stack of old letters, documents, and a small envelope sealed with wax. She tore it open and gasped when she saw what was inside, an original birth certificate. Her name was there. But the father's name wasn't Desmond Cole. It was Elias Cole. Her heart stopped. "Who is Elias Cole?" she whispered. Before she could read further, the door burst open. Evelyn and the guard stormed in. "Give it to me," Evelyn shouted. Amara clutched the documents. "What? What are you trying to hide?" Evelyn's lips twisted. "You wouldn't understand. That name you just saw, Elias, is not someone you want to find. Leave it buried, Amara, for your own good." Amara shook her head. "I'm not leaving until I know everything." The guard moved forward, grabbing Amara's arm roughly. But before he could pull her away, a voice echoed from the doorway, strong, angry, and familiar. "Let her go." Everyone froze. Amara turned. It was Chief Desmond, weak but standing with a nurse beside him. His eyes burned with fury as he looked at Evelyn. I warned you not to touch her. Evelyn's face drained of color. Desmond, you shouldn't be out of bed. I said let her go. The guard hesitated, then released Amara's arm. Desmond walked in slowly, breathing heavily. So it's true. You still couldn't keep your hands off the past, Evelyn? What have you done this time? Evelyn's composure cracked for the first time. Desmond, please? But he turned to Amara instead. Show me what you found. Amara handed him the paper with trembling fingers. Desmond unfolded it, his expression darkening as he read. No, he whispered. No, this can't be. What is it? Amara asked fearfully. Desmond's voice trembled. Elias Cole is my brother. The room fell deathly silent. Amara's eyes widened. Your brother? Desmond nodded slowly. If this certificate is real, then it means. Evelyn's tears spilled. Desmond, please, I was only trying to protect you. Desmond looked at her in horror. Protect me from what? Evelyn collapsed into a chair, covering her face. From the shame. Elias didn't just run away. He disappeared after Clara got pregnant. He was wanted by the police, for fraud, for betrayal. If people knew he was part of our family, everything you built would crumble. I couldn't let that happen. Amara's knees went weak. You mean, the man who might be my real father was your brother? Desmond swallowed hard. Yes. And if that's true, it means you're still my blood. Evelyn sobbed quietly. I was wrong. I just didn't want to lose everything. Desmond turned to Amara, tears streaming down his face. You were never supposed to suffer for our sins. You're part of this family whether anyone likes it or not. Amara stood frozen, the truth hitting her like thunder. Her entire life, every hardship, every unanswered question, suddenly made sense. But deep down something still felt unfinished. Because if Elias Cole was truly her father, then where was he now? And why did everyone act like he didn't exist anymore? Amara looked at Desmond. Then I need to find him, she said firmly. I need to know what happened to Elias Cole. Desmond closed his eyes slowly. Be careful what you wish for, child. Some truths can destroy more than lies ever could. But Amara only tightened her grip on the golden key. I've lived in darkness my whole life. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. As the storm outside intensified, lightning flashed across the mansion windows, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Unseen by any of them, a man watched from the gate, his face hidden beneath a black cap. He held an old photograph of Clara, and on the back of it, written in fading ink, were the words, I'll come back for what's mine. Backhand index pointing right. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more gripping stories like this, and tell us where you're watching from. The next morning dawned heavy with tension. The sky was gray and low, the kind of morning that felt like it carried secrets in the wind. Amara sat on the veranda of Kemi's apartment, her eyes swollen from a sleepless night. The golden key and the crumpled birth certificate lay before her on the small wooden table, the paper edges soft from her constant touch. Kemi emerged from inside holding 2 mugs of hot tea. You haven't touched your food since last night, she said softly, placing 1 mug beside Amara. Are you sure about all this? Going after a man everyone says vanished 20 years ago? Amara's gaze didn't waver from the document. I don't care if he vanished. I need to find out who he was, and what really happened between him and my mother. Kemi sighed deeply. You think this Elias Cole is still alive? I don't know, Amara replied. But the way Chief Desmond reacted, it's like he knew something he wasn't ready to say. Evelyn too, she looked terrified when his name came up. That means there's more to this story. Kemi sipped her tea. Then where do we start? Amara looked up at her friend. We start with the one place everyone avoids, the old Cole estate in Ibadan. Kemi's eyes widened. Ibadan? That's 4 hours away. Amara nodded. Yes. But that's where the Cole family lived before Desmond became rich. If Elias disappeared, someone there might remember something. Kemi frowned. You can't go alone, Amara. What if this Elias guy is dangerous? Amara gave a faint smile. Then I'll be careful. But I have to go. The road to Ibadan was long and dusty, lined with red earth and fields of swaying cassava plants. Amara clutched her mother's locket and the key close to her chest, lost in thought as the old bus rattled along the highway. When she arrived at the estate, her heart sank. What was once a grand colonial house now stood abandoned, its walls cracked, its gates rusted. The name Cole was barely visible on the front arch. She pushed open the creaking gate and stepped inside. Dust floated in the sunlight filtering through broken windows. Spiderwebs clung to the old furniture, and the smell of decay hung in the air. But as she explored the hallway, she noticed something odd, a candle flickering faintly in the far room. Someone had been there recently. "Hello," she called softly. "Is anyone here?" No response. She took cautious steps forward, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Then from the shadows an old man's voice croaked, "You shouldn't be here, young woman." She spun around. An elderly man, stooped and thin, stepped out from behind a broken bookshelf. His gray hair was matted, and his eyes sharp despite his frailty. "Who are you?" Amara asked nervously. He studied her for a long moment before replying, "I was the caretaker of this house. Once upon a time." Amara's voice softened. "Then maybe you can help me. I'm looking for someone, Elias Cole." The old man froze, his expression tightening. "Why do you seek that name?" "Because," she hesitated, then took a deep breath. "He might be my father." The old man's eyes widened. "Your father?" He stepped closer, examining her face carefully. "You look like her." "Like who?" "Clara," he whispered. "The woman who loved Elias. You have her eyes." Amara's throat tightened. "You knew my mother?" He nodded slowly. "Yes. She came here often back when Elias was still around. They were young, foolish, and very much in love. But then something happened, something that changed everything." Amara's heart raced. "Please tell me. What happened?" The old man sighed deeply, his eyes clouded with memories. Elias was accused of stealing company money from his brother, Desmond. Millions of naira vanished overnight. The police were called, and before he could defend himself, he disappeared. Some said he fled the country, others said Desmond's men silenced him. Amara gasped. "Silenced him? You mean?" The old man nodded grimly. "Killed. But no body was ever found. Only Clara kept believing he was alive." Tears filled her eyes. "That's why Mama never told me anything. She wanted to protect me." The old man looked at her with pity. "If you truly want to know the truth, there's one person who can tell you everything, Desmond's younger cousin, Olamide. He worked for both brothers back then. Last I heard, he lives near Bodija Market." Amara thanked the man and hurried out, determination burning in her chest. Bodija Market was alive with chaos, hawkers shouting prices, women balancing baskets on their heads, and the smell of roasted corn thick in the air. Amara weaved through the crowd until she found the small mechanic shed the old man had described. Inside, a middle-aged man with oil-stained hands worked beneath a car. "Excuse me," she called. "Are you Olamide Cole?" The man slid out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag. "Who's asking?" "I'm Amara," she said, pulling out the birth certificate. "I believe I'm Elias Cole's daughter." Olamide froze. "Say that again." "I said Elias Cole was my father." He dropped the rag, staring at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. Elias never had any children." He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing. "Wait, Claire. You're Clara's girl, aren't you?" Amara nodded. "Yes." Olamide's face went pale. "Oh my God, then you really don't know what happened." "Please," she begged. "Tell me everything." He sighed heavily. "Elias didn't steal that money. Desmond and Evelyn framed him. They wanted to get rid of him because he refused to sell his share of the company. When the scandal broke, Evelyn planted fake documents to make it look like Elias embezzled funds." Amara's jaw dropped. "You mean my father was innocent?" Olamide nodded gravely. "He was. But by the time the truth started coming out, it was too late. Elias vanished. Some said he was hiding in Ghana. Others whispered Evelyn had someone take care of him." Amara clenched her fists, tears streaming down her face. "So my mother suffered for nothing? We lived in poverty while Evelyn and Desmond built an empire on lies." Olamide hesitated. "Desmond didn't know everything. Evelyn handled the cover-up. She told him Elias fled with Clara to escape the police. But the truth is, Clara ran because she was pregnant and terrified." Amara's voice trembled. "And now she's gone too." Olamide looked at her sympathetically. "Your mother was a good woman. If Elias were alive, he'd have come for you." Amara stared at the dusty ground, her thoughts spinning. What if he's still out there? What if he never stopped trying to come back? Before Olamide could reply, a loud noise came from outside, a car screeching to a stop. They both turned. A black SUV had pulled up. Two men in suits stepped out. One of them shouted, "Miss Amara, you need to come with us." Olamide's face darkened. "You're in danger. Run." Amara grabbed her bag and sprinted through the back door as the men chased after her, shouting into their radios. She dashed through the narrow alleys of Bodija, her heart thundering in her chest. "Stop her!" one man yelled. She ran faster, weaving between fruit stalls, pushing through startled vendors. Her lungs burned, but she didn't stop until she reached the edge of the market. There, a motorcycle rider looked up just as she yelled, "Please! Take me to the nearest bus station." As the bike sped away, she looked back to see one of the suited men speaking into a phone. And though she couldn't hear him, she could read his lips. "We found her. Tell Madame Evelyn." Hours later, Amara sat on the bus back to Lagos, trembling. The key, the birth certificate, the locket, all felt heavier now. Everything was starting to make sense, but it also meant she was in danger. Evelyn knew she had the truth, and people like her didn't stop until every threat was silenced. Amara turned her face toward the window, whispering to herself, "You can chase me all you want, but I'll find my father. I'll clear my mother's name." But deep down she couldn't shake one haunting thought. If Elias Cole was still alive, why had he never come back? The answer to that question would shake everything she believed about family, loyalty, and betrayal. The bus rumbled through the night toward Lagos, its worn seats creaking with every bump in the road. Amara sat by the window, her face pale and her eyes heavy with fear and determination. She couldn't close her eyes. Every time she tried, the image of those men chasing her through the market replayed in her mind like a nightmare that refused to end. Kemi's voice echoed in her memory, "Don't go alone." And now she wished she had listened. When she finally arrived back in Lagos, dawn was breaking. The city was stirring to life, the call of roadside hawkers, the clatter of taxis, the scent of morning smoke rising from suya grills. She held her small bag tight against her chest and quickly made her way home. Kemi was waiting outside their apartment, worry written all over her face. "Amara, where have you been? I couldn't sleep all night. I was about to go to the police." Amara fell into her arms, trembling. "I found out everything, Kemi. My father, Elias Cole, he didn't steal that money. He was framed by Evelyn." Kemi pulled back, shocked. "You're serious?" "Yes," Amara said, pulling out the folded document from her bag. "Desmond's brother was innocent. Evelyn lied to everyone and my mother paid the price." Kemi took the paper carefully, her brows furrowed. "But if Evelyn went this far to bury the truth, she won't stop now that you know it." "I know," Amara said softly. "She already sent men after me. I barely escaped." Kemi's eyes widened. "What?" "Amara, that woman is dangerous." Amara nodded. "I need to stay hidden, but I can't give up. There's something I still don't understand. If Elias was alive, why didn't he come back for my mother? For me?" Kemi hesitated. "Maybe he couldn't." Amara looked up. "What do you mean?" "What if he's dead, Amara?" Kemi whispered. "Maybe that's why no one's heard from him in 20 years. Amara shook her head. "No, I can feel it. He's alive. Somewhere." Before Kemi could reply, a knock thundered on the door. Both girls froze. "Who is it?" Kemi whispered. Amara's voice was barely audible. It could be them. The knock came again, louder this time. "Miss Amara? Open up," a man's voice called out. Kemi grabbed Amara's hand and dragged her toward the back window. "Out now." They slipped out just as the door burst open behind them. Two men in black suits stormed in, searching the small room. Amara and Kemi ran barefoot through the alleyways, their hearts racing. The morning sun had barely risen, yet fear burned hotter than the heat itself. They ran until they reached a crowded bus park, blending into the swarm of commuters. They ducked behind a food stall, panting. Kemi looked at her wide-eyed. "What are we going to do now?" Amara wiped her face, breathing hard. "We can't keep running. If we go to the police, Evelyn will find a way to silence them too. I need proof. Something no one can deny." Kemi frowned. "Proof of what?" "That Evelyn set up Elias," Amara said. "If I can find evidence, letters, documents, anything that shows what she did, then Desmond can expose her himself." Kemi nodded slowly. "But where would something like that be?" Amara thought for a moment. Then it hit her. The Cole mansion. Desmond said the truth was behind the portrait. "I found the key, but what if that was only part of what my mother left behind?" Kemi gasped. "You want to go back there again?" "I have to," Amara said firmly. "It's the only way to clear my mother's name." That evening, as darkness fell, Amara and Kemi hid in the bushes near the Cole mansion. The compound was heavily guarded, but Amara noticed something. One guard kept leaving his post every half hour to smoke behind the garage. That was their window. They crept through the shadows, their hearts pounding with every step. The mansion loomed tall and silent under the moonlight, its windows glowing faintly. Amara found the side door she had used before and slipped inside. The air smelled faintly of polish and flowers, Evelyn's scent. "Where now?" Kemi whispered. "The study," Amara replied. If Elias ever left any documents behind, they'd be there. They tiptoed through the dark corridor, guided by the faint glow of Amara's torchlight. When they reached the study, Amara's breath caught in her throat. The desk had been cleared recently. Papers were scattered on the floor as if someone had searched through them in a hurry. Evelyn must have been here. Amara began opening drawers, flipping through old files and letters. There has to be something. Kemi moved to the bookshelf. "What about this?" she whispered, pulling a thick, dusty ledger free. Amara took it and flipped through the pages, mostly old financial records. But near the end, a small sealed envelope slipped out. On it, in faded ink, were the words, "For my daughter, if truth ever finds her." Amara's breath hitched. "It's my mother's handwriting." Her hands trembled as she tore it open. Inside was a short letter written in Clara's familiar, looping script. "My dearest Amara, if you are reading this, then fate has brought you back to where it all began. I was forced to flee because Evelyn discovered Elias's innocence and feared losing everything. She made Desmond believe Elias was guilty. When Elias tried to confront her, he vanished. But I believe he is alive somewhere far away watching from the shadows. Follow the trail of the orphanage in Aja. That's where he left his last message for us." Amara gasped, tears blurring her vision. Mama knew, she knew everything. But before she could say more, footsteps echoed in the hallway. "Someone's coming?" Kemi hissed. Amara stuffed the letter into her bag just as the door swung open, and Evelyn Cole appeared, holding a pistol. The sight of her made the air freeze. Her eyes were cold, her lips tight. "You never learn, do you, Amara?" Kemi stepped in front of her friend, trembling. "Please ma'am, we're just leaving." "Shut up." Evelyn snapped, pointing the gun straight at Amara. "You don't understand what you're playing with. Everything Desmond and I built will crumble if the truth gets out. You should have stayed in the gutter where you belong." Amara stood her ground, voice shaking but strong. "You ruined my mother's life. You framed an innocent man. And now you want to destroy me too." Evelyn's finger twitched on the trigger. "You're your mother's daughter, all right, too stubborn for your own good." But before she could pull the trigger, a voice boomed behind her, cold and commanding. "Put the gun down, Evelyn." Evelyn turned sharply. Desmond stood in the doorway, leaning heavily on his cane, flanked by 2 security guards. "Desmond," she whispered. "It's not what it looks like." He cut her off. "I've heard enough lies from you to last a lifetime." Evelyn's hand shook as the guards approached. "Desmond, please, I did it for you, for us." Desmond's face hardened. "You destroyed my brother, Evelyn. You destroyed Clara. And now you nearly killed our daughter." Evelyn froze. "Daughter?" He nodded. "Amara is my niece, Elias's child. That makes her family. The only one who still carries our blood with honor." Evelyn's knees buckled, the gun falling from her hand. "I only wanted to protect our name." Desmond turned to his guards. "Take her away." As they dragged her out, Evelyn's voice cracked in desperation. "Desmond, you'll regret this. You'll see, Elias isn't dead." The words echoed through the mansion like a curse. Amara's heart skipped. She said he isn't dead. Desmond turned to her slowly, his face pale. "Then it's true. Your mother was right. Elias is alive." Amara clutched the letter tightly. "And I know where to find him." Outside, the night wind howled as Amara looked toward the horizon. The letter in her hand pointed to a new destination, the Aja orphanage. Somewhere out there her father might still be waiting. And if he was alive, then the next chapter of this story would change everything. The next morning, Amara stood at the edge of Aja, watching the golden sun rise over the horizon. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and the chatter of traders setting up their stalls. She tightened her scarf, her mind focused on one thing, the orphanage mentioned in her mother's letter. It was called Grace Haven Children's Home. A small, weather-beaten sign pointed toward a narrow dirt road that led deeper into the community. The path was lined with old houses, their walls cracked from years of rain, and children played barefoot in puddles left from the night storm. Amara's heart raced as she approached the orphanage gates. The building was modest, painted in faded yellow and surrounded by a small garden of hibiscus flowers. A middle-aged nun sat by the doorway, peeling oranges for the children. "Good morning, sister," Amara greeted softly. The nun looked up, her kind eyes crinkling. "Good morning, my dear." How may I help you? I'm looking for information, Amara began carefully. About a man who might have come here many years ago. His name was Elias Cole. The nun froze slightly, her hand tightening on the orange. Elias Cole? She repeated as if testing the name on her tongue. Why do you seek him? Amara took a deep breath. He was my father. The nun's eyes widened with recognition. Your father? She looked at Amara more closely now, scanning her face. You have his eyes. And your mother, was she Clara? Amara's heart skipped. You knew her? The nun nodded slowly. Yes. She came here often even after Elias disappeared. She left a donation under his name every month for the children. Amara's voice trembled. Did Elias ever come back here? The nun hesitated, then motioned for her to follow. Come with me, child. They walked through the orphanage garden to a small chapel at the back. Inside, the faint scent of incense lingered, and sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. The nun stopped before a wooden cabinet and opened it carefully. Inside lay a dusty, locked metal box. Elias left this, she said softly. 20 years ago. He said it was for his daughter, if she ever came looking for him. Amara's throat tightened as tears filled her eyes. He knew I'd come? The nun handed her a small key. He gave this to me with strict instructions. If a young woman bearing Clara's eyes and my name appears, give her the box. I think you are that woman. With trembling hands, Amara unlocked the box. Inside were letters, photographs, and a small cassette tape labeled, Truth. Her fingers shook as she picked up the first letter. The handwriting was strong but shaky, as if written in fear. My beloved Clara, if you find this, then it means the truth finally caught up to us. I didn't steal the company's money. Evelyn set me up and Desmond believed her. I ran to protect you, and our unborn child. If anyone finds this message, know that I am alive but I can't return yet. They are still watching me. I will come for our daughter when the time is right. Amara's tears spilled freely as she clutched the letter to her chest. Mama was right. He was innocent. The nun placed a hand on her shoulder gently. There's more, child. Play the tape. Amara stared at the cassette in her hand. Do you have a player? The nun nodded and brought out an old cassette recorder from her desk. She inserted the tape, pressed play, and the machine whirred before a man's deep, weary voice filled the chapel. My name is Elias Cole. If anyone is listening, then I am likely gone, or still in hiding. The people who frame me are powerful. They won't stop until my name is erased forever. But there's one thing they don't know. Evelyn is not acting alone. Someone else is behind it all. Someone even closer to Desmond. Someone inside Cole Holdings. The tape crackled and Amara leaned closer, her heart pounding. If my daughter ever finds this message, tell her to go to the old warehouse in Apapa Port. There she will find proof of who truly destroyed our family. The tape clicked to an end. Amara sat frozen, her tears drying on her cheeks. Apapa Port, she whispered. The nun's brow furrowed. That area is dangerous, child. You can't go alone. I won't, Amara said, standing up. But I have to go. My father's truth is there. Later that evening, Amara met with Desmond in his mansion study. He looked older, weaker, his health clearly fading, but his eyes still carried the fire of a man haunted by regret. I found a letter from Elias, Amara said, placing the paper before him. He didn't steal from you, Uncle Desmond. Evelyn framed him, and someone else helped her. Desmond's hand trembled as he picked up the letter. Someone else. Yes. He mentioned another person. Someone close to you. He said the proof is in a warehouse at Apapa Port. Desmond's face darkened. Apapa Port. That's where our company first started operations. It's also where Elias disappeared. Kemi, who stood beside Amara, spoke up nervously. Sir, if that place holds the truth, we can't wait. We have to go there before anyone else does. Desmond nodded grimly. You're right. But we must be careful. If Evelyn knew about this, others might too. Amara looked him in the eye. I'm not afraid anymore. Desmond smiled faintly. You remind me of your mother. Brave. Stubborn. I'll send my driver to take you there, but I'm coming too. The road to Apapa was long, winding through the industrial outskirts of Lagos. Huge trucks lined the roadside, their headlights cutting through the fog. The smell of oil and sea salt filled the air. When they arrived, the old warehouse stood at the edge of the port, silent, massive, and forgotten. Its metal walls were rusted, and the doors hung slightly open. Stay close, Desmond said, stepping out first with his cane. The driver followed behind, flashlight in hand. Inside, dust floated in the air. Crates and boxes were stacked high, most labeled with faded company logos. Amara's flashlight swept across the space until it landed on something. A locked office door with a rusted handle. "Over here," she called. Desmond joined her. "That must be Elias's office." Amara tried the handle. It didn't budge. The driver stepped forward, kicked the lock, and the door creaked open. Inside, papers covered the desk, untouched for decades. A thick file sat in the center, marked Cole Holdings, Confidential 2004. Amara's heart pounded as she flipped it open and froze. Inside were documents showing bank transactions, signatures, and photos. One of the signatures matched Desmond's. "What is this?" she whispered. Desmond looked over her shoulder, confused. "That's my signature, but I never signed these." Kemi's eyes widened. "Then who did?" Before anyone could answer, a slow clap echoed from behind them. Well, looks like the past finally caught up," said a deep, mocking voice. They turned. A man in a black coat stepped out of the shadows, his face partially hidden beneath a cap. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his voice carried a chilling familiarity. Desmond's cane slipped from his grasp. "No, it can't be." The man smiled darkly and removed his cap. It was Elias Cole. Amara gasped, her knees nearly giving way. "Papa?" Desmond's mouth fell open. "Elias, you're alive?" Elias stepped closer, his face older, marked by years of pain. "Alive, yes. But not the man you remember. You took everything from me, Desmond." Desmond shook his head in disbelief. "Elias, I didn't." "Don't lie." Elias roared. "You and Evelyn destroyed me. You let her frame me because you wanted the company for yourself." "That's not true," Desmond shouted. "Evelyn lied to both of us." Amara stepped forward, tears streaming. "Papa, please listen. Uncle Desmond didn't know. He thought you ran away." Evelyn admitted everything. Elias turned to her, his anger softening slightly as he saw her face. "Clara's eyes," he whispered. "You look just like her." Amara's lip trembled. "Mama never stopped loving you. She believed you'd come back." Elias's face broke. "I tried, my child. I tried for years. But when I learned what they'd done, I swore I'd make them pay. Every last one of them." Desmond took a cautious step forward. "Elias, please don't do this. We can make things right again." Elias's hand moved behind his coat, and when it came back out, it held a gun. Amara screamed. "Papa, no. You think you can erase what you did?" Elias snarled. "You built your empire on my name, my pain, my child's tears." Desmond raised his hands slowly. "If it will give you peace, then take my life. But don't destroy what's left of our family." Amara ran between them, her arms spread wide. "Please, Papa, don't. You'll only prove Evelyn right. She said hate would destroy us all." Elias's hand trembled, his eyes darting between his brother and his daughter. The years of bitterness, the sleepless nights, the betrayal, all of it boiled beneath his skin. And then the sound of sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed through the broken windows. "Police!" shouted a voice from outside. Elias turned, startled. Desmond looked at Amara. "Who called them?" "I didn't," she whispered. Then another figure stepped into the doorway, handcuffed but smirking. Evelyn Cole, escorted by 2 officers. "I told you," she hissed. "This family will destroy itself without me." Elias's gun wavered, his jaw tightening. In that single moment, between revenge and redemption, time seemed to stop. And with trembling hands, Amara stepped closer, whispering, "Papa, you can choose hate, or you can choose me." Elias's eyes filled with tears. His gun fell to the floor. He sank to his knees, weeping as police officers rushed in. Desmond knelt beside him, his own tears falling. "Brother, forgive me." Elias whispered hoarsely, "I already did." The officers handcuffed Evelyn and led her away as Amara watched, her heart aching but hopeful. For the first time in decades, the truth had been set free. But she didn't know that one secret still remained, one Evelyn hadn't revealed. And that secret, when uncovered, would change everything again. The rain came down in sheets that night, beating against the roof of Cole Mansion like 1,000 angry fists. The storm felt fitting, as if the heavens themselves were mourning 2 decades of betrayal and lies. Amara sat beside the window, staring out into the darkness. Everything had changed in just 24 hours. Evelyn was in police custody. Her father, Elias, was alive, broken, repentant, and free at last. Desmond, once powerful and proud, was now weak and frail, carrying the heavy burden of guilt. But something about Evelyn's last words haunted Amara. This family will destroy itself without me. She said it with a certainty that chilled her. As if there was still something none of them knew. Kemi entered quietly, carrying a tray of tea. You haven't eaten all day, she said softly. Amara didn't respond at first. Her gaze was distant, her mind deep in thought. Kemi, she said finally, what if Evelyn wasn't lying? What if there's something else she hasn't told us? Kemi frowned. Like what? I don't know. But I can't shake the feeling that this story isn't over. Kemi sat beside her. You've reunited with your father, Evelyn's been exposed, Desmond regrets everything, what more could there be? Amara shook her head. Mama's letter said something about what was taken. What if it wasn't just about the company or Elias's name? What if something, or someone, else was taken from us? Kemi hesitated. Someone? Amara turned eyes wide. What if I wasn't the only child? Kemi gasped. You mean, you might have a sibling? Before Amara could answer, Desmond's deep voice came from the doorway. You might be right. They both turned. Desmond stood there, pale and trembling, a folded document in his hand. I went through some of Evelyn's old things. I found this. He handed Amara the paper. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. It was a hospital birth record. Her mother's name was there, Clara. But beside it were two infant names. Amara Cole and Emmanuel Cole. Amara's heart stopped. There was another baby? Desmond nodded slowly. A twin. Your brother. Kemi covered her mouth in shock. Oh my God. Amara's voice broke. But, Mama never told me. Desmond sat heavily in the chair, his face shadowed with sorrow. Clara gave birth to twins in secret, here in Lagos. Evelyn found out. She told the doctors to report only one child survived. Then she took the other baby away. Tears blurred Amara's eyes. She took my brother? Yes, Desmond whispered. She gave him away. Said it was for the good of the family, that no one could ever know Elias had children. Kemi shook her head in disbelief. So all this time you had a brother out there, somewhere in the world, and Evelyn made sure you never knew. Amara stood up suddenly, the weight of the truth crushing her. I have to find him. I have to find Emmanuel. Desmond reached out weakly. Amara, wait. We don't even know if he's alive. She turned toward him, her voice firm. If my father could survive 20 years in hiding, my brother could still be alive too. I have to try. The next day, Amara and Kemi drove to the hospital listed on the record, St. Teresa's Maternity Center, now an old and half-abandoned building in Yaba. Rain dripped from its broken gutters and the once white walls were covered in mold. Inside, a tired-looking nurse in her 50s sat behind the counter, reading a newspaper. Good afternoon, Amara greeted. I'm looking for records from 2004. A woman named Clara Cole gave birth here. The nurse looked up slowly. 2004? That's over 20 years ago, my dear. Most of those files were moved to the city archives. Amara's heart sank. Please, is there any chance you might still have something? The nurse sighed, studying Amara's desperate face. Wait here. After a few minutes, she returned with a faded, dusty file. You're lucky. Some of the older files never got transferred. Amara's hands trembled as she opened it, the same record Desmond had shown her, but this time with an additional note scrawled in the margin. Baby B. Emmanuel. Discharged to private guardian. Authorized by Evelyn Cole. She gasped. Private guardian? Who? The nurse squinted. It doesn't say. But the guardian's name starts with a T. Looks like T. Cole. Kemi frowned. Another Cole? Amara's pulse quickened. Uncle Desmond and Papa are the only Coles I know. The nurse shook her head. Then maybe there's another. Someone with influence. They must have paid well. This looks like a quiet adoption. Amara turned to Kemi. We need to go back to the Cole family records. There has to be someone with a name starting with T. That evening, back at the mansion, Amara searched the old family archive room. Dusty files lined the shelves, land deeds, company records, family photographs. She flipped through until she found an old family tree. There, a name stood out. Tobias Cole, Desmond and Elias's cousin. Amara stared at it. Tobias Cole, that's him. Desmond, who had followed her in, froze. Tobias? That can't be. Why not? She asked. Desmond's face darkened. Tobias was obsessed with power. When Elias and I started the company, he begged to join us, but we refused because he had a history of shady deals. He disappeared after that, but years later, Evelyn mentioned getting help from someone in Ghana. It must have been him. Amara's eyes widened. You think Tobias took Emmanuel? Desmond nodded slowly. And raised him as his own. To use him, perhaps, as a weapon against us. Kemi whispered, so Amara's twin brother might have been raised to hate his own family? Amara's stomach turned. We have to find him before he finds us. That night, as the mansion fell silent, Amara couldn't sleep. The wind howled through the corridors, making the chandeliers tremble. She sat on the couch, holding her mother's locket and staring at the flickering fire. Suddenly, a noise broke the silence, a car engine outside. She rose slowly, moving to the window. A black SUV had just pulled up at the gate. The headlights went off and the engine stopped. Amara's heart began to pound. Moments later, the doorbell rang. Desmond appeared at the top of the staircase, cane in hand. Who could that be at this hour? I don't know, Amara whispered. Stay back. She opened the door slowly. A tall man stood in the rain, wearing a hooded jacket. His face was partly shadowed, but when he looked up, Amara froze. He had her eyes. His voice was deep, steady, and calm. Amara. Her heart raced. Who are you? He smiled faintly. You already know. Desmond stepped forward, his voice shaky. Emmanuel? The man pulled down his hood, revealing a striking resemblance to Elias, the same jawline, the same sharp gaze. So it's true, he said softly. I finally found you. Amara's lips trembled. You're my brother? Yes, he said, his expression unreadable. Your twin. The one who grew up in the shadows while you lived in light. She frowned. I didn't even know you existed. I know, Emmanuel said. But I knew about you. Tobias told me everything, about how our parents abandoned me, about how Desmond stole everything from us. Desmond's voice rose. That's not true. Tobias lied to you. Emmanuel's eyes burned with anger. Don't play the saint, uncle. You all lied. Tobias showed me the papers, the signatures, proof that you destroyed my father. Amara stepped closer, shaking her head. No, brother. You've been deceived. Papa's alive. He's here. He never abandoned you. Emmanuel's breath caught, disbelief flashing in his eyes. Alive. Yes. Amara said desperately. He was framed. Evelyn and Tobias were behind everything. They used us as pawns. Emmanuel's hands clenched. You're lying. I'm not, she cried. Please come inside. Let us show you. For a moment, silence filled the air. The rain softened and the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, Emmanuel lowered his hood. If he's alive, I want to see him. Desmond nodded. He's resting upstairs. Come. But as they turned, Emmanuel's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, and his eyes darkened. Tobias Cole's name glowed across it. Amara saw the message flash briefly. Finish it tonight. No loose ends. Emmanuel's hand tightened around the phone. His jaw set. Desmond noticed his change in expression. Son, what's wrong? Emmanuel's voice was cold now, distant. It's too late for peace. He reached into his jacket. And Amara's scream tore through the storm. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the mansion's marble hall in a harsh, white glow. Rain drummed furiously against the roof, matching the wild pounding in Amara's chest. Emmanuel stood in the doorway, soaked from the storm, his hand still inside his jacket. His eyes, her eyes, were filled with something between fury and pain. Desmond, breathing heavily, raised a trembling hand. Son, please, listen to me before you do something you'll regret. Don't call me son. Emmanuel shouted, pulling out the gun. His voice cracked, the rage barely hiding years of betrayal. You don't have the right. You stole everything from us. Amara stepped forward slowly, hands raised. Emmanuel, please. I didn't even know you existed until yesterday. We're twins, you and I. We share the same blood, the same mother, the same pain. But Emmanuel shook his head, eyes blazing. You had a life. I didn't. Tobias made me work like a dog for everything. He said our family abandoned me, that our mother sold me off for money. I swore I'd make every Cole pay for what they did. Desmond's voice broke. Tobias poisoned your mind, boy. I loved your father like my own soul. I would never have harmed him. Emmanuel's gun wavered slightly. He told me you ordered his death. Amara's voice trembled. That's a lie. Papa's alive, Emmanuel. He's upstairs right now. You can see him with your own eyes. For a moment, Emmanuel hesitated. His breathing slowed, the gun lowering just an inch. Alive. Yes, Amara said gently, taking a cautious step closer. He's waiting for us. He thought he lost you forever. Please let him explain. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the glass panes. Emmanuel's eyes darted between them. Desmond, frail but sincere, and Amara, trembling but fearless. Finally he exhaled shakily. "If you're lying to me." "I'm not," Amara whispered. "Come." They climbed the grand staircase together, the air thick with tension. Amara led the way, Desmond following behind, his cane tapping rhythmically on the floor. When they reached the room, Elias Cole sat on the edge of the bed, weak but awake. His tired eyes lifted as they entered, and when he saw Emmanuel, his breath caught. He froze. The color drained from his face. "Elias," Desmond said softly. He came back. Elias rose unsteadily, tears welling in his eyes. "Emmanuel?" The young man stiffened. "You know my name." Elias took a trembling step forward. "I gave you that name before they took you from your mother's arms." Emmanuel's jaw tightened. "Tobias said you sold me. That you traded me for your freedom." Elias's voice broke. "No. I would have died for you. I searched for you for years. Tobias was supposed to protect you, but he betrayed us all." Amara watched her brother's expression flicker, doubt breaking through anger. "You're lying," Emmanuel said weakly, but his voice had lost its conviction. Elias reached out a hand, his own shaking violently. "My son, my boy, look into my eyes. Do you see it? I am your father. I never stopped loving you." Lightning flashed again. Emmanuel's breathing quickened. His hand trembled around the gun. Then, slowly, his eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to believe anymore," he said hoarsely. Amara stepped forward. "Believe your heart. Not the lies Tobias fed you." Elias took another step closer. "Please, Emmanuel. Let's end this pain. Come back to your family." For a long, silent moment, it seemed as if time itself was holding its breath. Then Emmanuel dropped the gun. He fell to his knees, sobbing. All these years, all this hatred, for nothing. Elias collapsed beside him, pulling him into a trembling embrace. "It wasn't for nothing, my son. You're home now. That's all that matters." Amara knelt beside them, tears streaming freely as she wrapped her arms around them both. For the first time in 20 years, the Cole family was whole again. But peace never comes easily. Hours later, as dawn crept through the rain clouds, the mansion was quiet. The storm had passed, but its echoes lingered in the damp air. Amara sat in the sitting room with Kemi, watching the first light spill across the compound. "It's over," Kemi said softly. "You found your father and your brother. The truth finally came out." Amara smiled faintly. "Yes. But something tells me Tobias won't stop until he gets what he wants." As if summoned by her words, Desmond's phone rang. He frowned, answering it. "Hello." A cold, familiar voice came through the line. "You took my soldier from me, Desmond. You think a few tears and confessions will fix decades of power? The Coles owe me, and I always collect my debt." Desmond's hand clenched around the phone. "Tobias, what have you done?" A low chuckle answered. "You'll find out soon enough. Check the front gate." The line went dead. Amara rushed to the window. A black van was parked just beyond the compound. The driver's door opened, and a figure stepped out, tall and menacing, holding something in his hand. Kemi's eyes widened. "Is that?" Before she could finish, an explosion ripped through the gate. The blast threw them backward, shattering glass and filling the mansion with smoke. "Get down!" Desmond shouted, shielding Amara with his body. Sirens blared in the distance as security guards ran toward the flames. The front gate was in ruins, fire licking the edges of the courtyard. "Tobias," Desmond growled, coughing through the smoke. "He's still alive, and he wants revenge." Amara helped him to his feet. "We have to get Papa and Emmanuel out now." They raced upstairs, but the power suddenly cut off, plunging the house into darkness. From somewhere in the hall, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. Elias's voice came from the bedroom. "Amara? Desmond?" Then another voice answered, cold and mocking. "You should have stayed dead, brother." A flashlight beam cut through the dark. Tobias Cole stepped into view, his face older but cruelly familiar. A gun gleamed in his hand. Elias froze. "Tobias." Tobias smiled bitterly. "So the prodigal brother returns, huh? All that suffering, all that hiding, only for your little girl to dig up your past and ruin everything." Elias stepped forward protectively. "Leave them out of this. Your fight is with me." "Oh, it's with all of you," Tobias hissed. "You took my chance at power. You made me the forgotten Cole. But tonight, the world will remember my name." Amara's voice trembled. "You already destroyed enough lives. Don't do this." Tobias sneered. "I built you, Emmanuel. I raised you. And now you betray me for them? Emmanuel stepped forward from the shadows, his face hard. You didn't raise me, you used me. You made me hate my own blood. I'm done living in your lies. Tobias laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Then you'll die with them. He raised the gun. Amara screamed, lunging forward. The shot rang out, echoing through the mansion like thunder. For a split second everything went still. Then Tobias staggered backward, clutching his chest. He looked down in disbelief at the blood spreading across his shirt. Emmanuel stood before him, holding the gun Tobias had once forced him to train with. Tobias fell to his knees, eyes wide with shock. You shot me? Emmanuel's voice broke. You left me no choice. Tobias tried to speak, but only blood came out. Then he collapsed motionless. Amara stood frozen, trembling as the smell of gunpowder filled the air. Elias sank to the floor, tears streaming silently down his cheeks. Desmond placed a shaky hand on Emmanuel's shoulder. You did what you had to do, son? But Emmanuel just stared blankly at the lifeless body. He was the only father I ever knew. Hours later the police had come and gone. Tobias's body was taken away, and the mansion was quiet again. Elias, Desmond, Amara and Emmanuel sat together in the living room. The morning light poured in through the open curtains, painting their faces in soft gold. No one spoke for a long time. Finally Elias said quietly, We've lost too much to lies and hate. It's time we start healing. Amara nodded, her hand resting on Emmanuel's. We're a family again. That's all Mama ever wanted. Desmond exhaled, tears glistening in his tired eyes. Claire was right about everything. Love always finds its way back. They all sat in silence, the storm outside now gone, replaced by birdsong and sunlight. And as the camera of fate slowly pulled away from the Cole mansion, Amara's voice echoed softly. In the end it wasn't wealth, revenge or power that brought peace to our family. It was truth. And though truth can burn like fire, it also purifies the soul. I was the poor girl who found my mother's portrait in a billionaire's house, but I also found something far more valuable, my family.